Alright guys, good morning. Welcome to Sunday Assembly Nashville. Thanks for coming out today. It's beautiful. It's sunny. We were able to be nimble because of all of the construction. Thank you guys for still showing up. We're going to have a great time over the next hour. We always get started with a few songs, and so it's going to make it easy for you. All I'm asking you to do is to stand up with me, and go ahead and stand up, and then you're going to hear Frank over here on the bodhrán and Nate over here on the guitar rock some stuff out. I just need you to clap along with them. If nothing else today, let's just feel that groove together and make sure we get this morning started. Is everybody ready? Let's do it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here for the first time. Raise your hand. Okay, so awesome. You are not alone.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Wow. How many people were here last week and came back? Whoa. Wait a minute. I know many of you were here last week. All right, there we go. Lots more. Last month. How many here were last month and came back? Yeah, there we go. Okay, that makes sense. Awesome. So if you were here last month, we played this song and sung this song together as a group for the first time. So I should hopefully hear at least, I don't know, 10 of you who said you came back. But let's go ahead and start it out. We're going to give you a little bit of the chorus here and then get going on it.
1, 2, 3.
I did it all. I did it all. Here we go.
Yeah.
Let me hear you. Oh, when you take that jump, you can feel the fall. Oh, when the water rises, you build a wall. Oh, when the crowd screams out, screaming your name. Hope if everybody runs, you choose to stay. Hope that you fall in love and it hurts so bad. Only way you can know is give it all you have. And I hope that you don't suffer, take the pain. Hope when your moment comes, you will say, I did it all. I did it all. I own every second that this world could give. So many places, the things that I did. And with every broken bone, I swear I live. Hope that you spend your days and all that up. And when that sun goes down, I hope you raise your cup. I wish that I could witness all your joy, all your pain. Until that moment comes, I'll say, I did it all. I did it all. I hope every second this world could give. So many places, the things that I did. Every broken bone, I swear I live. We got whoa, 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 it's coming up. Here we go. Broken bone, I swear I live. Every broken bone, I swear I did it all. I owned every second that this world could give. Saw so many places, the things that I did. Every broken bone, I swear I live. Nice job. You guys stay standing up one more time for me. So those were great. While we're getting adjusted here, you can hear Alex playing that. So I'd like us to follow along with what he's playing here. Here we go. Listen to me. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let me hear you. quickly say, my name is Adam Newton. I'm with the Unnamed Assembly Band, and we've got so many people that participate in the music. I always forget sound, so I want to start with sound and say, Mr. Scott Taberman, thank you very much for helping us today. Franco is also on the sound and playing the bodhrán today. Thank you very much. We have Steven on guitar, Nate on guitar, Ben on bass. Chris is joining us for the first time on drums today. Right? We've got Marina and Bill. Marina on vocals, Bill on electric guitar. We've got Ray and Deb. Ray on keyboards, Deb on vocals, and Katie Burns and Olivia. Who are you? And I already said Olivia DeFazio and Alex DeFazio. And yes, and you were last, not certainly least. Thank you for not ruining your hand in that car door this morning. Okay, so I want to introduce our host for today. You guys know her. She's been involved in every aspect of Sunday Assembly for a very long time. She's been a featured speaker. She's just such a caring person. Miss Nancy Scutel is our host today. Give it up.
Sunday. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
I'm usually pretty loud anyways, but well, my kids say I am. But anyways, how fantastic is this morning? Yeah. Right? Can't beat the weather, music has been fantastic, so I'm really excited to be hosting. Like Adam said, I've done a few different things with Sunday Assembly, so I'm really excited to be here today. First things first, just a few reminders. We do offer childcare, so for those of you who are brand new, welcome. Thank you for coming. If you have little ones and you want to bring them next month, we typically have childcare upstairs. Today they are across the hall over in Lasky Building. Can you hear me a little bit better right now? There we go, that's better. Okay, also singing is encouraged if you haven't noticed. We like to sing along, we like to dance. If I wasn't up here, I'd probably be over there dancing with Matthew and Melissa. So it's really good to see so many familiar faces, so many new people here. I'm really excited. Today is going to be just a fantastic assembly. An outline of what today is going to be. Everyone has a program. In your program, we also have community cards, which is something new that we're trying to do. We're trying to learn who you are so that we can all be involved more as a community. So there is a card that looks like this.
Really?
Yes, they're on the table in the front lobby with the program. So if you want to, on your way in, on your way out, fill one out, leave it there so we can kind of know who you are and how we can best tap into your talents and things that you want us to know about you. Let's see. A quick outline of what today is going to entail. We are going to have a wonderful speaker today, Mr. Mark Jarman. He's going to be here to talk about some of his poetry. So our theme today is human creativity, and we're going to be talking about that, the creative process. We're going to be hearing 2 readings of his poetry. He's going to talk to us. We're going to hear a fantastic Trying My Best about how someone got creative with a program of their own. And we're also going to hear an original piece of work by one of our own members. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started with our readings. First, we're going to start with Mr. Matthew Bond, and he's going to be reading Summer by Mark Jarman.
All right.
There's the page. All right. Summer. At the end of a bad year, the swifts offer their bodies to the air we breathe, saying, "This is the real world." And she did, turning to me on the bed, "This is the real world." And on the eve of another uncertainty, the fireflies cover their lamps, their blazing codes, sinking with us to sleep. Echo, "This is the real world. This is the real world." And as the dogwoods forfeit their beauty, and August ignites its first leaf, there is consolation in knowing that this is the real world. For she was naked, and I believed her.
And now we're going to hear, we're going to listen to Brynda Quinn read Groundswell, also by Mark Jarman.
I can be pretty loud too. Is this okay? Groundswell by Mark Jarman. Is nothing real but when I was 15 going on 16, like a corny song? I see myself so clearly then, and painfully, knees bleeding through my usher's uniform behind the candy counter in the theater after morning surfing, paddling frantically to top the brisk outsiders coming to wreck me, trundle me clumsily along the beach floor's gravel and sand, my knees aching with salt. Is that all that I have to write about? You write about the life that's vividest, and if that is your own, that is your subject. And if the years before and after 16 are colorless as salt and taste like sand, return to those remembered chilly mornings, the light spreading like a great skin on the water, and the blue water scalloped with wind ridges. And what was it exactly? That slow waiting, when to invigorate yourself, you peed inside your bathing suit and felt the warmth crawl all around your hips and thighs. And the first set rolled in, and the water level rose in expectancy, and the sun struck the water surface like a brassy palm, flat and gong-like. And the wave face formed. Yes. But that was a summer so removed in time, so specially peculiar to my life. Why would I want to write about it again? There was a day or two when, paddling out, an older boy who had just graduated and grown a great blonde mustache like a walrus skimmed past me like a smooth machine on the water and said my name. I was so much younger. To be identified by one like him, the easy deference of a kind of God who also went to church where I did, made me reconsider my worth. I had been noticed. He was soon a small figure crossing waves, the shawling crest surrounding him with spray whiter than gull feathers. He had said my name, without scorn, just with a bit of surprise, to notice me among those trying the big waves of the morning break. His name is carved now on the black wall in Washington, the frozen wave that grievers cross to find a name or names. I knew him as I say I knew him then, which wasn't very well. My father preached his funeral. He came home in a bag that may have mixed in pieces of his squad. Yes, I can write about a lot of things besides the summer I turned 16, but that's my groundswell. I must start where things began to happen, and I knew it.
I don't know about you, but I particularly like that poem.
Yeah.
Groundswell, the imagery in it is just amazing. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about, or introduce our speaker who wrote that poem, Mr. Mark Jarman. Mark Jarman's most recent collection of poetry is Bonefires, New and Selected Poems. He's also published 2 books of essays about poetry, The Secret of Poetry and Body and Soul, Essays on Poetry. His honors include the Lenore Marshall Prize, the Poets Prize, the Balcones Poetry Prize, and a Guggenheim Fellowship in Poetry. He's done a lot, right? He is Centennial Professor of English at Vanderbilt University, where he's taught since 1983. From 2009 until 2014, he served as an elector of the American Poets Corner at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine in New York City, helping to induct playwright Tennessee Williams, novelist James Baldwin, and Catherine Ann Porter, and poets Sylvia Plath, very happy about that, and John Berryman. He makes his home in Nashville with his wife, Amy Jarman, head of the voice department at Vanderbilt's Blair School of Music, and they have 2 daughters, Claire and Zoe. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Mark Jarman.
It's always a little bit embarrassing to be moved so by your own poems. I've never been more moved than to hear both of those readings of my own work. It's almost as if what I'm going to say about them will be an anticlimax, and it will be an anticlimax. I'm going to talk about writing both poems. I'm going to start with Groundswell, which is the earlier poem, which I wrote about 30 years ago. So I need to look at the poem as I talk about it, because the poem really describes its own composition. Let me say something about, since I'm about creative process. From a very early age, when I started writing poetry as a teenager, I learned to make writing a habit. I have to sit down every morning, clear out at least an hour, where I stare at a page. Now, as the years have gone by, I have collected many drafts, so I have a folder I can pull out and look at and stare at words on a page that I've written and wait for them to come alive. What happens in Groundswell is that I am basically staring at lines on a page, the opening of the poem that you heard, in which I am writing about a subject that I have written often before. I grew up in Southern California, at the south end of Santa Monica Bay, surfing in Redondo Beach and Torrance Beach with my other high school junior high and high school classmates, and as it turns out, young men in my church and things like that. I mean, that was the sport if you grew up on Santa Monica Bay. It was like the sport of truancy. If Huckleberry Finn had lived there, he would have surfed. So that's a landscape I can always return to if I am looking for something to set me off. A few lines, a description of landscape. I continue to write about it. But at this point, as I said, about 30 years ago, half the age I am now, I was looking back at another 15 years, half the age I was then, and I had written many, many times about this, and I wondered, why am I returning to this? I've written about this landscape is deep, it's under my skin. I can always pull something out, and that's the thing, those of you who have any kind of daily artistic habit, it's that thing you're looking for, what will set me off toward an end. And for me, it was always coming back to this place. I haven't lived on the West Coast for 40 years, but I can always return to it in mind, in memory, and find something to begin. But on this particular occasion, the whole beginning of the poem, until I say there was a day or two when paddling out, I have this in a rough draft, and I'm wondering what's going to happen with this? What's going to happen with this moment? And then Bernard Bailey swept into view on his surfboard, older boy, a really good surfer. I hope you were able to infer from my poem, I was not good at all. I was not good. I did have a little job at a movie theater near the beach. I never worked up the knobs on my knees to keep them from bleeding. I wasn't very good. Bernard was really good. And it was the summer before he went into the Army, so we're talking about summer of '68. Bernard Bailey came into my memory, and I remembered seeing him a couple of days where I was surfing in Torrance Beach. I'd only seen him at church. We didn't go to high school together. He was an older boy. And he looked around at me on a morning where the surf was pretty big. And he said my name as if he was surprised to see me there. And he should have been surprised. I had no business being out there. As soon as he came in, I remembered what happened to him. I remembered his death's effect on my father's church and congregation, its effect on my father politically. It was a turning point. And those of you who remember the Vietnam War and may have lost friends or acquaintances and known about it, you know what I'm talking about. Something that happened when a death came into your community it just changed everything, and that's what Bernard Bailey's death did. So when I saw Bernard come into my memory along with his surfboard, and I saw what would happen, then I was able to go back through the poem and make these little touches that would have to do with foreshadowing or Bernard. Even the kind of vulgar reference to what we did when we're out in cold water. The Pacific is a cold ocean. It's not like the Atlantic. Even in summer it's cold. You sit out there, yeah, you pee in your bathing suit, it will warm you up. But I thought, I'm going to make all these little reference to blood, fluids, loss, expelling, and I'm also going to show Bernard surfing with the shawling crest around him. There are going to be all these little things, the wave face itself, so that when I get to the moment, his name is Cardinal, on the black wave in Washington, it's going to be the point where, for you as a reader, I hope, and I felt that when Brynda was reading it live, this is the moment you're suddenly going to be knocked back. And remember that this is a point in history where I have recognized myself, and perhaps you've had this experience too, where I'm part of history. A groundswell is heavy surf, which is a sign of a storm far at sea. That's mainly the technical, that's the definition you find in a dictionary. Where I lived, there was all kind of local dialect, especially around surfing. A groundswell was just a big set of waves. But I want you to be aware that this groundswell, where I start, locally was that sign that across the Pacific, 5,000 miles away, in Southeast Asia, young men were dying, young women were dying, and Bernard Bailey would too, and this history would come back in this way. When I got to that, and I was recalling with my youngest daughter, who's a writer herself, how long I sat with this draft. And I thought, I'm going to talk to these people, I said to her, tomorrow about the creative process. How do I say to them, you take out this piece of crap, and you look at it and you wait for it to turn gold, day after day, month after month. This is not a joyful experience. But it does kind of fill you with wonder when you realize there was a day when it turned to gold for me. I thought, yes. Right? Now, I have a whole sheaf of drafts that I still look at daily, wait for them to come alive. But one of the things that I do as a writer is that there's a sense in which I can't wait. I have to keep looking at them and poking at them and hoping one of these days they'll come alive as well. So that's kind of the story of the composition of Groundswell. Bernard Bailey, I mentioned, actually, the poem really is a conflation of two older acquaintances who were killed in Vietnam. One was a boy who did go to my high school and was in my writing club. I greatly admired and wanted his attention. And so when I think of the boy here, I think of Bernard Bailey, whose name is on the wall. I visited it. A friend of mine recently was visiting, took a picture of it and sent it to me, which moved me very much. But another boy named Michael McCann, whose name is also on the wall. They died from different consequences. Bernard, hostile fire. Michael McCann, what's called unhostile fire without. There's not much of an explanation. You can find them both online. The other aspects of it, my father telling me about the body coming back with an officer and who instructed him on the viewing of the body and things like this. All of these things came into the poem. They all suddenly became accessible to me. The other poem, Summer, I had thought for years was a post-9/11 poem. And this morning I looked at the drafts. For years now I've kept drafts of the poems I write and found that in fact I had completed the draft that Matthew read 3 months before September 2000. It was like June or July 2001. And I was struck by that. I was struck by that because one of the things that for me about that poem was that when you say summer is the end of a year, you reveal that you're an academic. That's the end of your year is summer, and you look for that, you wait for summer. But this was a particularly bad year at my school, that's all I'll say. It was bad. And I was complaining a lot. And I was trying to find some way to come out of this terrible mood. And it was my wife who finally said to me, as I have her say in the poem, it's one of those poems where, yes, this really happened, who turned to me and said, she also said, stop it. And she said, this is the real world. And when I was working on that poem, that was also a moment where I thought, that's what I need to get down here. I need to represent an end of the year as a kind of anomalous thing. Summer, it's not the end of people's years, but if you teach, it's usually thought of as the end of the year. And I wanted to have just a series of things that seemed to be happening at once. In an early draft of the poem, I had written, on the eve of another, and at the dawn of another catastrophe. Now when I was working on this poem, I thought that's just totally exaggerated and melodramatic. Whatever you think is catastrophic just because you don't like your chairman isn't to anybody else. So I changed that, and you could hear it. It's on the eve of another uncertainty, which I thought was more temperate and more exact. I wanted to use that phrase, this is the real world, and I'll end by talking about that. What is the real world? The groundswell begins with the question about, there's nothing real but when I was 16, since those memories are so vivid. What is the real world? There's often talk about, life in the academy, where I spend most of my time, as being not the real world. We send students out to find the real world. I have long thought that the real world is where you are most alive. I had a sense, listening to you all this morning, this is one of the most spirit-filled I attend Christ Church Episcopal, but this was filled with, I know I'm not supposed to say holy, but that's how it felt. To me, what is the real world? The real world is that moment where you're alive, most alive. And for me, that's when I'm writing, but also with my family, of course. But that's what's the real world. I don't really think we should be telling each other what the real world is in contrast to what the unreal world might be. There are many real worlds. There are many worlds. That's a theory of physics. There are many real worlds. That's the real world. That moment when my wife invited me back out of the artifice of my complaining to the real world was a galvanizing moment for me. So, writing poetry, when I'm writing, whether I'm doing well or badly, I know I'm always in the real world. And I felt today with you that I've been in the real world too. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. What we've got coming up next is our moment of science, our moment of silence. And so right now we like to just take a moment to reflect, do what you want, take this to kind of be still, be quiet. That's hard for me. If you know me, I'm a busybody, so here's some cool science facts for you. That was amazing, right? All right. The second one blew me away. I don't know if you saw that, but the whole fact about a teaspoon and that was,
Go ahead and read them.
that was kind of crazy. You want me to read them?
Yeah.
Okay.
I couldn't see them.
All right. So The first one says, if an atom's nucleus were the size of a corn kernel, its electron cloud would be roughly the size of a football stadium. Amazing. This one blows my mind right here. The number of atoms in 1 teaspoon of water is greater than the number of teaspoons of water in the Atlantic Ocean. Think about that.
Wow. Come on.
I know, right? Do we need another minute to ponder that? Are we good? Okay. So up next, we've got Mr. Landry Butler, who's going to perform an original piece entitled, "The View is Incredible from Here." So let's give Landry a round of applause.
How about that, Professor Jarman? That was great. Some very special friends here who were able to make it out today. Thanks for coming out. Appreciate your support. It's a good thing. Doing a piece called "The View is Incredible from Here," which was written for an exhibit I did in 2002 up in Kentucky. We did a big performance thing at the Bell Court. We had dancing girls and people. It's like, watch the women, don't look at Landry. So just pretend I'm not here. As far as creativity, though, this piece was kind of tangentially inspired by the story of Robert Johnson, who was wanted to be a blues man. And so he went down to the crossroads and he sold his soul to the devil and became the greatest blues man there ever was. And I thought about that, and I thought, you know, I would sell my soul to the devil, but that loser can't afford it. Thank you. I'm easy, but I'm not cheap for anyone but you. I'd give my life to the masses, but they ain't worth the effort. I love them, but I gotta draw the line. And when I look into your eyes, I see my dreams, I see my visions. When I look into your soul, I see my heart, I see my love. And yeah, you know, if I were Bowie and you were Iman, I'd never want to be apart. At least in theory, I'd want you all the time. And if I were Tarzan and you were Jane, we'd swing like Larry Flint. At least in fantasy and the privacy of home. And this is the time when we consider who we're not. We make peace with who we are, and we foment our plans for world domination. At least in our dreams, we'd reign supreme. Your lips are chapped and so are mine, but that doesn't matter. Nothing else matters now. Save our dreams. Save the people we wish to become from the people we used to be. Everything is different. Everything has changed. Everything is different. The changing stays the same. Thanks.
Talking about creativity, wow, we've got some good stuff, right? So up next, we have our next segment called Trying My Best. And we've got our very own Mr. Alex Starr, who's going to be talking about how he's been trying his best. This segment is where we like to come and talk about what it says, trying our best, and how we're trying to make it in this world. Okay?
Well, hello, everyone. Hey. I'm so glad to be here. Before I get started, I just want to say this. I'm a little long-winded, but I've been given a 2-minute buffer, and I'll probably use every bit of it. But I just wanted to say how grateful I am for this room and this place and what it is for me. And the first time I came here, you know, I wept. Being in Tennessee, who I am, it's not always safe to be that person. And the first time I came here, I had never been surrounded by so many people that I felt shared some of my core views, so to have that kind of identification with brotherhood. Don't know about you guys, but it's a really safe place for me, and it means a lot. Thanks so much, the Sunday Assembly board members and Miss Nancy. She's doing a rocking host job. Mark, you're the man. Yeah, I'm not a huge poetry fan, but we studied that the other day with Matthew at his house, and that groundswell, I was like, now there's something to that. I'm telling you, it is really something else, man. And Matthew, he's such a good poetry buff. He's got it down to the science, son. So, but I'm really grateful for all my Sunday Assembly family. So, I shall begin. This is 12-Stepping Atheist. Hi, my name is Alex, and I'm an addict. I've been introducing myself this way for 13 years. By the tender age of 20, I'd been battling addiction and losing for several years, and I was tired. Tired of being manhandled by a habit that no amount of willpower could best. I went to a 12-step fellowship for help. So here's the rundown. I got in the program, and it worked. Though I had been an antagonistic agnostic going into the process, the steps made me a believer. A serious one. I repaired my life and later got into college and discovered science and its ability to derive truth about this world we live in. Further, I learned that the evidence for the existence of God is far from strong. The 12-step program insisted on honesty, and after years in the fellowship, I had to be honest with myself. I no longer believed in a supernatural big brother. In time, I had become the dreaded A word, an atheist. Over the next few years, I struggled to reconcile my newfound lack of faith with the language and culture of the program. After a major issue with my home group about using the Lord's Prayer at the end of their meetings, I took a break. But it didn't work out very well. I didn't relapse, but the symptoms of addiction returned. I had to go back. But what about this God business? A buddy of mine knew of another 12-step fellowship that wasn't so heavy on the God stuff. I went. And I liked the meetings there, but knew I needed another house cleaning, another run through the steps. And some of them are pretty God-heavy. This is how one atheist dealt with the 12 steps. Step 1 is simple. We admitted that we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable. Check. Step 2. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Okay. Hiccup 1. Insanity was an old friend, but what about this power greater than myself stuff? This was broaching the mystical flavor of things. My sponsor reminded me that it could be any power greater than me, so I came up with Pac-Man. The P stood for the program and its principles. I knew that if I followed the simple blueprint for living, that I could remain a healthy person. The program and its principles were both separate from and more powerful than I was. The A stood for action. That is, I realized that my actions had an effect on my personality, regardless of my feelings or thoughts. If I practiced honesty, if I practiced open-mindedness, if I practiced willingness and compassion, I would gradually become more honest, more open-minded, more willing, and more compassionate. I needed to change my actions, and this would then restore my sanity, with or without my permission. The C stood for conscience, that internal voice that knows right from wrong and whispers sense when I was blinded by self. This voice had formerly been identified as my voice of God, but I knew that it was now simply my conscience. This element of my higher power wasn't quite me, because I really can't control this voice. Much like my heart, liver, and other vital organs, my conscience's behavior is also involuntary. So, I had the elements of my personal higher power, Pac-Man, program, action, conscience, more powerful than me, and could definitely restore me to sanity. Step 2, done. Pac-Man also solved step 3. We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. No God with me, and I have no capital H in Him, but that, quote, as you understood Him, saves me because it means whatever conception I want, and I had no problem turning my will and life over to Pac-Man. However silent on the matter he, lowercase, might be. The next few steps involve an in-depth moral inventory of my life, followed by a detailed sharing of my life story with another, wherein I discover my character defects and become willing to have them removed. These steps presented no major issues, but then, step 7. We humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. I come to a screeching halt. This changes things. I mean, the humbly part I could handle. I often boasted about my many accomplishments in humility. But how was I ever going to ask Pac-Man to do something? I mean, I had a power greater than me, but it wasn't a living power. I needed something alive I could make this request of. I brainstormed, I meditated, I called some friends, nothing. Then one day as I watched an emotional YouTube video, I'm a Disney kind of guy, it hit me. Humanity. Not only is the helping of humankind the driving purpose of my days and hours, but also this very same power, humanity, has been helping me from the very start. When I'm excited, sad, boastful, struggling, confused, who and what do I go to? My fellow men in recovery, my family members, my friends. I reach out to humankind. I knew at that moment that the final and fourth element of my higher power was there all the time. Pac-Man. I had a power, separate from and more powerful than me, that I could ask something of and even receive it. I immediately constructed my 7-step prayer, gathered about a dozen of the men closest to me, got on my knees, really, and asked them to help with the removing of these shortcomings. They've been holding up their end of the bargain ever since. Step 7, finito. Following the next steps involving making amends where I had caused harm, went pretty smooth, although step 11 gave me pause. We sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, asking only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Meditation, okay, but how can I pray? There's nothing to pray to. Then I thought, well, why can't I pray to my conscience? From the dawn of man, all who had ever bowed their heads before a meal had been talking to their inside voices. They just didn't know it. So I would just talk to my little inside voice, tell him what he needed to be doing, ask him why he did something or what he thought about a thing. Often the telling was all there was. Other times I felt the answer. I've found that I do in fact believe in the power of prayer, and my prayers don't have to make the 13.9 billion light-year journey to a celestial radio listener to change my life. My prayers only have to travel the few inches from my mouth to my heart. That answers step 11. Step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to other addicts and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Mission accomplished, life changed. I turned my attention to help the next man, regardless of his God or lack thereof. While I'm not 100% sure where my worldview will go, I've been an atheist now for over 7 years, and it has liberated me and brought me more happiness than I could ever describe here. But wherever my path leads, I know that my higher power is there to help me. My program, my actions, my conscience, and humanity. Pac-Man. Thank you.
I mean, how creative was that, right? Talk about human creativity, and just as a side note, as a social worker, my heart is just like, oh my gosh, I love this story. And thank you for being so brave and sharing that story. That's really about what trying my best is about. It's about, this essence of kind of putting yourself out there and sharing. And there's so much value that comes in that experience and sharing what you're going through with others. And so if you have an idea on sharing my best, seek one of us out. We want to hear it. Next, we've got some announcements coming up. Let's see. Financial contributions. I'm going to point to Kate here for a second. She's going to let us know about a little bit of changes that are going on with collections. Those of you who have been here before know the old way we used to do it, but now we've made a few changes with collections. So, Kate?
I have created a really, really cute artistic donation box. So y'all have to make sure you hit that on the way out. And it was suggested by the band member formerly known as Stevia that possibly the basket passing would be more lucrative than a donation box. But nothing would make me happier than if we could prove that suggestion invalid. One other thing I'd like to say is that at the end of the assembly, if anyone can kind of use arms and legs to help break down and carry equipment, our band members are always the last one heading to the restaurant and the last to be seated. So it pitch in and help, that'd be great.
Absolutely. So for those of you who are new, we are a nonprofit, right? Do you know what that means? We need money. We need money to do this every month, and all of the volunteer activities that we do and being able to help out in the community at all costs. We're not asking for a lot, but anything that you can give is appreciated. Donating time, donating a little extra money. You can donate online. You can set up a regular donation that you can do. We've got computer out front. I think Tanya's got the little reader that she can take credit card information or debit card or whatever. We take cash, whatever you want. So, also, again, just want to briefly mention the community cards that are out there on the table. Go ahead and fill them out so that we know when your birthday is, right? Christina, happy birthday. Christina, if my team was here today, I'd do the same thing. I'm sorry. I'm nervous as well, so I had to do it. Also, I wanted to say just a quick note about the Vanderbilt Secular Student Alliance. Douglas, where are you sitting? Douglas is right here, and so he's a great resource for events and all kinds of things that are here at Vanderbilt. So seek him out if you have questions. Okay. And also, just kind of on a personal note, I don't know if anybody was aware of what we did yesterday, but we had a pretty good turnout for our volunteer project. We helped service about 150 people at our volunteer program yesterday, where we brought toiletries, household goods, items to people in the Vine Hill area in Nashville, if you're familiar, is kind of a lower income area, and so we were able to help out seniors and people with disabilities. So we were able to help provide goods and help them out a little bit in their home, and we got a lot of good feedback from their resident council president, and then I got a personal email last night from the Director of Social Service who said that the residents were just, so excited to have us there and help them out because they really need assistance. Things, just everyday things they don't have, that we were able to help them out with. So if you volunteered, if you donated your time and your energy, I just want to say thank you, because it's something that, if you've spent 5 minutes with me, I'm going to start chatting your ear off about what the elderly need, and I'm going to start talking about Alzheimer's and dementia, so it's really close to my heart. Some other upcoming events that we have, we've also got the Buzzy Jackson Book Tour on April 4th. Yay! We've got our annual spring picnic at Shelby Park at Windmill Hill. That's on April 5th. This is a potluck, so bring a dish, share a dish. We've also got the West Park Stream Cleanup, April 11th. That's a lot of fun. If you haven't done it yet, sign up to do it. It's a good way to get your kids involved and help the environment as well. We've also got something I'm really excited about too. If you've got a program in front of you, there's a little flyer, looks like this, about family portraits. So on April 12th until 1 p.m., so after assembly, we are doing a fundraiser for a spring photo. So you can get your family photo, that sort of thing. So if you're interested, you can get online, you can register, you can sign up and book an appointment. Okay? And let's see, what else do we have to announce? Afterwards, the women's meeting for girls musicians. You're going to see Chris. She's going to be out here in the hallway if you want to talk to her afterwards for the April assembly. So she's going to be over there, all female musicians, singers, people who have way more talent than I do. Go over there and see Chris. And then, okay, the big announcement, right? I know you all are waiting for. So afterwards, immediately following all the songs, we are going to have a brief presentation of the proposed organizational structures. So we encourage you to stay, listen, participate, vote. We've had online voting, if any of you have been following us online. We've had online voting, maybe some hiccups, maybe not sure. We've had get online and vote. I think we've got a computer set out up front, right? If you want to vote online, you can still go and vote real quick. And then we're also going to have a show of hands afterwards. So we encourage you to stay for the vote, listen to the presentations, because this is for all of us, right? This is our community, and we want everybody to be involved and supportive and love each other, and we want to be successful. So stay after for the votes, and then immediately following that, the board is going to have their vote and decide on which organizational structure they're going to go to. Okay, I think that's it. Oh, yes, and lunch is at Mellow Mushroom, I believe. Yep. Yes. Mellow Mushroom, everyone knows where that is? Okay. 27th 21st Avenue. So literally you go out the door and straight to your
One block.
One block.
And you can just walk, right? I mean,
You can literally, you can leave your you can park your car, leave it here, and walk there and walk back. And after eating that mellow mushroom, whatever it's called, you're gonna want to walk anyways because it's pizza. So, yeah. All right. And then the band.
Okay, so thank you, Nancy. This is going to be, we're going to do a rock and roll song here led by the girls, Miss Deb and Miss Marina. So let's just stand up and support them and rock out with them.
I don't do that right. I didn't do that right. I know.
hard that probably was. Thank you, man. Alright guys, we got one more song and then again we want you to stick around, so if you're ever time to get your dancing shoes on, now's the time. Don't make me be the only one. Alright, here we go! Everybody stick around. Will be plenty of time to get together and say hi and stuff, but let's do a quick break before we get into the organizational plan discussions. Thank you guys.